drug abuse, cancer,
measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer.
Good evening once again, folks. Welcome to Doctor on Call. It is Tuesday evening, of course, and at this time every Tuesday we have a doctor in studio with us, and we discuss issues that can help better inform you of, maybe conditions or different signs or symptoms that you may observe and you want to seek help, or when you need to seek help. This evening, as usual, Dr. Sonia Nixon is with us, and we will be talking about substance abuse and what that can cause. Yeah, it's a very, very, very serious issue, and so we need to address it. Doc, good evening and welcome again. How are you doing?
Hot. It's very humid despite the rain. I guess that means we have. So good evening to Grenada, and I hope everybody's taking precautions. I think these showers remind us that we're in a dangerous time. This is hurricane season. Most of us got up by the skin of our teeth. Some people weren't so lucky. People had, there's a lot of flooding in some areas and stuff, roads breaking and so. So we have to remember this time we have to take precautions. And I want to say something quick about that, because your house may not go down, or, you may not, the bridge to your house may not break, but businesses may be closed. And what's going to happen is that you may not have your medications if you're sick, and you may not have food for the children, and you may not have, dry clothing, and you may not have petrol in your car so you can,
get around, yes, if you need to.
So prepared, and, have matches and lighting. So go on to the NADMA site or call and say what I need to have an emergency bag, 3 days of clothing in a bag, make sure all your papers are secure, make sure you have enough food, crackers, tinned foods, kerosene for your lamp,
clean water, clean drinking water.
Water for 3 days. If we have rain, I guess we have rainwater to bathe in. And if you live close to where it would flood, like along riverbanks, and a lot of people who live in informal settings, make sure it's passable. If you're pregnant and you're at term, make sure you're close to town. So you don't, we have to cross a river to come down to go to the doctor, to go to the hospital. If you're taking to have baby, you have to make sure that you're in a facility, or by your cousin or your auntie or your godmother, or find somebody over the bridge where you can go and stay, right? Because, like I said, the bridge may break. Right? And even if the bridge doesn't break, nobody driving because half of it gone, or it's sink or something, or the road have holes or water way change or something. So if you're asthmatic, if you have asthma, make sure you have your pump. If you have diabetes and hypertension, go stock up on your medications. Those are very important things that we need to take into consideration. Like I say, 3 days of clothes, 3 days of food, a flashlight, some battery, your papers, your house, your land paper, your children's birth certificate, your marriage certificate, whatever it is. You might be going to transactions in the bank, all your papers, put them in a plastic bag.
And your medication, secure your medication.
And secure your medications, please. Have a blanket and a sheet and whatever it is. Put a little bag, pack a little Georgie bundle, something that you can carry with you if you have to move to your own house. Identify where's the nearest shelter. Some of us shelter in our friends' homes, but you have to. If I don't have friend or family, where's the nearest shelter? And don't wait until the river comes down to try and get to the shelter. Make sure you cross the river before. Don't wait until it's late that you can't get to the shelter.
That'll be problems.
Yeah, a lot of people ask to evacuate and they don't. And then when water starts to rise and pollution starts happening, they call emergency services. But in emergency services should not go or won't go, because we also can't put into danger the people who are going to be taking care of us and preventing, further disaster. So in order to avoid a disaster, you have to understand. Make sure there's a plan in your family, right? That your family knows if we get separated, where we're going to meet up. Right? If we get separated, I might be at work. and something happens, but I know where my mother or my brother or my sister or my nephew or my grandchild, I know everybody's going to be. Everybody knows what is their role when this stuff comes. So families need to sit down together and have their own individual plans.
Yes,
and of course,
indeed.
only advice from NADMA. I know people have been a little upset that, oh, NADMA tell us XYZ. The truth is, NADMA is the only person who has the right to tell you. And the information you get as to what is going to happen is called a prognosis. It is what is likely, most likely to happen. It may not happen, but it's the most likely thing to happen. So if all of us listen to the same news, we shan't go wrong, okay? For the most part, we've just been blessed that the plans, that the prognosis, the bad prognosis have not come through. So we're just, they make us buy food, they make us buy this. No, you should keep the food I buy, lock it down. Keep it to the end of the season. Okay? Today we had an earthquake at exactly midday. Lasted for about 3 seconds. So by the time you realize what was going on, I was up on the second floor of my building. I don't know, and I wondered, shoot, what would have happened if it lasted for 20 seconds? Okay? 3.7, but for me it was short and intense. Right? But we had an earthquake today. So you never know what is going to happen, when it's going to happen. So therefore, your family has to know, where do we all meet up if there is an act, if there's a thing, if there's any disaster. Earthquakes don't give warnings. Okay?
Very important.
You have food for your dogs.
Very important, very important. So, Doc, this evening we're looking at the issue of substance abuse. Last weekend it was substance abuse awareness. We didn't get to do it. We had some technical issues, and so we had to push it to this week. So, substance abuse. When we speak of that, what do we mean?
So, a substance could be anything. Okay, and different substances affect people differently. It could be black sage smoke. It could be cannabis or marijuana. It could be anything. So basically, substance abuse is the pattern of harmful use of any substance for mood altering purposes. It's a pattern, so you do it regularly. You want to do it because you feel you want to do it. Okay, you like how you feel when you do it. So your mood is altered. You feel good. You feel high, right? But it's that pattern. It's continuous. You have to do it every evening, every morning. You have to do it. Or when you feel you're getting a little anxious, go do it. Whatever it is, right? Any substance. Mm-hmm. There's some substances that we know, like alcohol, which is probably our biggest problem. Alcohol is a substance that alters your mood. You know, if you have to have 2 drinks, right? You can talk forever and laugh and no inhibitions. Right? And there's some people who after they smell the alcohol, I won't even tell you what happened to me after I drink half a beer the other day. But I had half a beer because there's nothing else. I want something tangy, and I had half a beer and I'm like, what is this? Okay? I was very unhappy because I don't like my mood altered. It really made me upset. I was upset with myself. All right? Because my friends know that I don't drink. But different people respond. Right? Mm-hmm. Some people, have you ever seen people who drink one drink and they behave, they're so belligerent, so disgusting, right? They curse, they go on, one drink, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That is pathological drunkenness. I mean, that's not very many people, but it happens, right? But they use it because it alters their mind. It makes them think and feel as far as their emotions are differently, and sometimes that is what they're really seeking. So there are different substances, and like I said, alcohol is probably our biggest problem in Grenada. It's most available. The law states that you're not supposed to drink before you're 18. The law also states that you cannot procure alcohol to anybody under 18. In other words, you can't buy a rum for them. You can't offer them a rum or drink. Alcohol comes in different forms, okay, different strengths. So there's beer, there's wine, and there's stout, and there is different kind of wine. Mm-hmm. You remember what's it called again? Nitrate and those wines of the 70s? But you're too young to drink them.
Yes, nitrate and there's another one. There's another one, nitrin, and oh boy, look, I forget the other one.
Nitrin, I know, because
yeah, there was another one. There were two of them, nitrin and something else.
Drunk as a teenager, and I hated it. I hated the way I felt as a friend's party, and I went home. I hated it. Okay, but those, they have high alcohol content, and then it goes up. You have rum, you have alcoholic beverages like the ones that mix up with alcohol, like
Smirnoff and all these things, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the see, I don't drink. I don't remember the name of them. Like Caribbean, that has a little bit of alcohol.
Yes.
And rum, bona fide rum. Yeah. First of all, you have the red rum. Yeah. First of all, you have Bacardi, which is what is called it's called a hot water. It doesn't. The alcohol content is much lower than what we make here.
Mm-hmm.
And things like Bacardi and those other foreign rums that have lower alcohol content, right? And vodka and it goes up, and you have rum, and then you have the things that we make that we don't even know what the alcohol content is. The thing that make hair grow on your chest.
oh yes.
Yeah, those and we make alcohol. You know, we have a lot of moonshine, which is a generic name for all those rums that are not made in any controlled environment. We don't really report them to the government. But we do have a lot of alcohol. I saw that a new one was released last week. One from Grenada, and it tastes good. Should you drink? Well, that's your decision. How much you should drink is probably what our concern is about. We think you can have a drink, one drink a day. Okay, all right, don't shout so loud I can hear you say, one drink? Yes, one drink, right? If you have to have a drink every day, you have a problem. Okay? If you have to have a drink every day, or if you have to go out on the weekend and drink till you're full, you also have a problem. Right? If there's that need to go out and really drink, if you have to have it every day, you do have. You know, alcohol is it's very relaxing. You sit with your friends, you have a glass of wine, or 2 glasses of wine. But if you have to drink, and I don't remember how many glasses of wine you drink, if you drink by yourself, right? Where you drink and you can't figure out how much did I drink. The bottle is empty, you go fill again. If you buy rum and take home, and you alcohol generally and take home, and you're constantly consuming, you may have a problem. And there are lots of underlying reasons as to why we drink, when we start drinking. I want to ask you, when's the first time you had alcohol? Godfrey?
Mm-hmm.
When is the first time you had alcohol?
I don't remember. It may have been probably in my teens.
But that's when you decide to take it. When is the first time you eat fruitcake?
Right. That probably may have been a little fella, man. But fruitcake is. I love cake actually. Well, now, for example, I try to avoid cake because I really like it, and if I start eating cake, I have an appetite for cake that is long lasting, so I try to avoid it.
So the point I'm making is that we actually do include or introduce ourselves, our family, our population to alcohol from very early. Your mother makes sorry without alcohol?
No, my mom doesn't use alcohol. She's Seventh-day Adventist.
Nice lady.
Yes.
But traditionally, not only Grenada, in the Caribbean, we make sorrel at Christmas. We put a little rum in there to make the back straight, okay? And we drink. We give our children alcohol. With alcohol for the most part. So there's an introduction. Mm-hmm. What's sad is that those of us who will have challenges with alcohol already come genetically marked. So if we can reinforce, that it's alcohol, that we can. But there are other things. I mean, there's cocaine and heroin, and sometimes that heroin and come under the state of opioids. They take away pain, right, and really put you in a space of comfort, happiness. All right. So you may start a habit, but often people start a habit of using like the opioids, pain, because they get it legally. So it might be illegal or it might be legal. Okay, so I break my large bone in my thigh, my femur. It's a very painful thing. I'm on a, you go to the hospital and see people on a thing that with a stretched leg. Okay, it's painful. Your doctor might introduce you to an opioid to help you to contain your pain, to be able to deal with the pain. And we see a lot of people who go to war, for example, they have severe war injury. They get opioids very early, and they can develop addiction. Those drugs are they're very, very, very addictive, right? And so people seek them out. They seek them out wherever. Okay, they're often available on the street to those who are looking for them. The other legal drugs like medication, you spoke about medications that we use for sleeping, anxiety, whatever it is. Some of the medication we use for people who have epilepsy and stuff. So we know about Valium and its cousins.
Yes.
Valium, which is diazepam, Ativan, which is Ativan. My brain is not working well tonight. And that group of drugs, which are very addictive. Do they have their place? Yes, they have their place. They have their place where you also need to tell the person, hey, guess what? I'm going to give you this because you kind of need it to help you. You know, that's anxiety. You just had a very traumatic experience, right? But I'm going to give you this for a few days. This is just to help you to transition. I'm going to take you off this in 5 days or 7 days. This is what it is. Because you're likely to develop addiction. Some people are on medications for as long and because it takes away those negative emotions, they seek and they're always using it, right? They no longer use it. They no longer need it for the original purpose. It's not being used because it creates a sense of happiness, well-being, relaxation, whatever. The cocaine and cannabis, which is also very available, and which unfortunately we're going to have a lot of discussions, I think, in the years and so to come, because we've been talking about legalization of cannabis. But that's a very I don't think the information is as clear as it needs to be. So the cannabinoids, cannabis is one of them. Okay, the weed that we smoke, the Mary Jane and the indica and the other things. Okay, they do alter mind. We feel relaxed. They make you calm. They're donors, okay? Make you feel very relaxed. Make you feel very confident. You're calm. But the cannabinoids, as that we've been talking about for medicinal purposes, are other species of the cannabis from the cannabis family, right? Extracted and used for pain management and all the rest. So that's two totally different things. So you can smoke the whole field of marijuana. It's not going to take away neuropathic pain. Okay? The challenge we face with the use of cannabis in our community is that our younger people are smoking cannabis. But also the people who use cannabis in medicine for medicinal purposes don't smoke it. They actually consume it orally.
Okay.
Or drink a little tea or whatever it is, but they usually consume the green stuff orally or extract the whatever is necessary.
But how do you determine what quantity is good for you or not good for you?
You mean of the cannabinoids when you have the medicinal?
Well, I mean, no. As you mentioned, some people they use it orally.
The oral, and with the present state of using cannabinoids for therapeutically, you know what amount you need. Okay? You're told what you need to use.
Okay, so you're told what you need to use. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay.
So there's that. And then, of course, there's tobacco.
Yes, indeed.
Very addictive. The nicotine in tobacco is very addictive. But tobacco, especially tobacco as we get it, the tobacco that we get in cigarettes and cigars, especially cigarettes, have a lot of toxins Lots and lots of tax. Apart from the fact that nicotine is going to make your arteries hard, so you stand a good at developing, having high blood pressure and all its friends. You stand a good chance of your diabetes becoming worse because of your blood vessels are so hardened and the circulation becoming so compromised, okay, etc. The other thing is that we know that people who use tobacco, 50% of the people who use tobacco are likely to die as a result of smoking tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
We also know that once you stop smoking, within 2 hours, the effects start to appear. The reverse,
mm-hmm.
right? So within 2 hours, your blood pressure, for example, starts trending down towards normal. So tobacco, and again, tobacco is available.
Easily available, yes, indeed.
Very available, right? There are a lot of other little things, a lot of little, what we call boutique drugs that a lot of us may not know about, but that exist. And they come as derivatives of things like the methamphetamines, for example. You know that the people make in the labs, especially in the Appalachia, that make you lose all your teeth and lose all your hair. Yes. In 6 months. They have their basic use. They're good for, we use them for people who have like ADD and those diseases to help people to focus and all the rest. But those drugs are also abused, mm-hmm. right? They make people feel nice, but at the same time there's severe effect on the human body, right? So, and you have other little things like Molly, which comes from the methamphetamines that a lot of students use because it keeps them up.
Right. I was going to ask you about this. Definitely.
About Molly?
The drugs that people use to keep them awake, and things like that.
Right. So the methamphetamines, Molly's part is a derivative, but those things are made in informal settings without much control, and they really shouldn't be used because people use it. And Molly, if you take a Molly, you probably don't need to sleep more than an hour a night. You don't need to sleep; it just keep you. It just eliminates sleep. Mm-hmm. Okay, so students use it a lot. A whole lot.
Mm-hmm. What kind of adverse effect can it have over time?
So those drugs tend to have a lot of damage on your vascular system. So if you look at the people who use the methamphetamines, those who make meth, mm-hmm. okay, crystal meth, they age. It's like, I guess, vascular system. Yes. They age. So you look 30 years older in a year. I kid you not. You see old people there because of the poor circulation and generally their skin dries out, their hair dries out, their teeth drop out, right? And I guess there's a lot of other intra-organ damage, right? That aging. Because of they tend to increase the heart rate. People can die from heart attacks, or die from ventricular fibrillation. In other words, your heart is beating so fast. That's it. When you look at a hummingbird and look at the wings not moving because it's moving so fast, right? The heart beats mm-hmm. so fast that it can't get enough time, so it's almost like it stands still. But it's really, really fibrillating. But it doesn't produce enough oxygen. It doesn't produce enough flow, enough flow of blood to take care of your brain and all this. You can die.
Right, Doc. When people, sure, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Last thing, because this is something we're probably going to talk about a week. One of the things that our young people have been using a lot, and it's not an illegal drug. It may not have alcohol. It has a lot of caffeine. The energy drinks, right? And those drinks cause problems, especially in people who are predisposed to having challenges like heart attacks, and you might have a family tendency towards having heart problems. That high level of caffeine, plus there's a lot of vitamin B, right, which can make you have severe problems. And I've known young people who have died from consuming energy drinks. Young athletes in particular. You've heard of young athletes who are dead. They have an energy drink before a game. You go play football, woof. That's it.
Let me ask this. When people, of course, are engaged in substance abuse, What is the likelihood of that person, for example, with continuous use, continues to increase the amount that they use?
So that's called you have tolerance, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So after you use a certain amount, you don't get that high anymore. Your body, so especially like alcohol, right?
Uh-huh.
You drink, and then you don't reach the high that you're accustomed reaching, or even cocaine, right? So you keep using more and more. And while you use more and more to reach that high, the negative effects on your body are occurring, are more likely to occur.
Right.
Okay. Right. So addiction, you feel that you need to have this. If you don't have it, you're not going to feel good. So you go seeking it. But then you get this tolerance to whatever substance you're using. So if today you use amount of whatever the substance is, tomorrow you need right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's different. Probably feel better, but then say, nah, I need it tomorrow. And this, I go to You got me? And so you need more and more. But the fact that you're taking more and more is the greater risk you put yourself at for whatever adverse effects can happen. Not the least of which is death. But then the other things that can happen, apart from physical illness, okay,
right.
heart problem, whatever dental, whatever problems you're gonna have, there's mental illness. We know that in children, in young people who have a predisposition, especially to schizophrenia, that thing where you're older and you just don't have any relationship with reality. We know that in young people who have that relationship with, who have a propensity to schizophrenia. Because not because your family have schizophrenia means that you are going to develop schizophrenia. But we know that cannabis in particular helps to unleash that kind of picture. Right? Puts you at risk for developing kind of schizophrenia. So generally the use of drugs, the more you use it, the more likely you are to have the side effects of the drugs. Whatever those really dangerous, noxious side effects are. The more you use it, the more you go. But then, of course, there's the social isolation. You know, think about a teenager who starts drinking, right? Or let's go to cannabis, which is more like, because nobody really see you when you smoke a little spray for 2 or 3, whatever, right? But then the relationship with reality tends to disappear. You're drowsy in class. You can't follow. You start falling back. Do you understand? And like I said, if you put schizophrenia, you may develop it, right? Also, alcohol, the same way, the whole social impact. So the child doesn't go to school, or the young man doesn't go to work, or the girl doesn't go to school. You got me? Because they're drinking. They're not taking care of their families. They can't take care of their children. They drink, they don't carry money home, mortgage don't get paid, and I can go on and on and on. So the social impact, okay, of alcohol and alcoholism. The interesting thing about alcoholism, and we probably can extend this a lot. The interesting thing about alcoholism is that alcohol rehabilitation, if it's done properly, has 75%. It's not pure, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, kind of get you back to almost normal.
Right. You would have to do relapse prevention and all the rest of it. But 75% of the people who go into and preferably residential rehabilitation, we don't have here yet, actually do better. So there's a mental illness. But then think about the social thing, having arrests, criminal records for people. We have a lot of deportees who have been involved in drug use and stuff. Incarceration because of you do minimal things on the road. You're drunk and disorderly. You cuss off people. You chop somebody. Whatever you do. I've seen one of the things I've seen here is that some of the murders that occur out of just violence, interpersonal violence. One of the persons is always drunk. So that argument comes up, and you really can't. Your cognitive.
It's out.
So whereas on a good day, you just walk and say, look, let's not argue about this. This time you just don't have the inhibition. You don't have those things that can make you make good decisions for your life. You become very impulsive, right? And your rational, your reasoning, your capacity to reason is very decreased. And of course, use and relationship with drugs include things like firearm challenges. People who sell drugs. That's part of the whole scenario of substance use, right? If there's a market, right? We talk about financial responsibility, where people smoke and drink or do whatever they do, and we know that people who use the more expensive drugs like heroin and cocaine will rob, but steal in order, what do you guys call them? The other name you call them, we call them differently where I lived in the past. The people who we call them stockies. That's what you call them?
No, maybe the Don.
No, the drones. You call them. So those people who use substances.
The drones are what? People who are selling or who are using?
Who are using.
Oh, well, okay. Drakes, yeah. Okay.
So in other places, call them stockies. The people who use substances tend to get involved in illegal activity. Like they don't work. They can't work probably because of where they are socially. So they break your house and they steal and they break your car, and it costs you $1,000 to replace your car glass. But all you're going there and take is your box of cigarettes on the seat or a notebook that have all your notes or your iPad have life history and all of, and without understanding the importance, right? Without understanding the importance. I saw a case of a guy who been breaking house. Maybe he does drugs, and he stole the child's books and threw the child's books, his notebooks and stuff, into the river.
Oh boy.
Okay, so there's a lot of things that those are the outcomes. We have challenges also with substances, with people who get into the juvenile justice system very early because they have been using substances.
Okay.
There's a great an increased propensity to violence in general. Fights, like we talk about murders, somebody pull a knife and they stab because they can't. But the whole issue of domestic violence, right? Where you go home and some of it is domestic between brothers and sisters, but also you go home and you're like, so you come from this all blah, and you want to fight and beat the woman up and all the rest of it. Homicides and general gender-based violence, right? So, but also when you think about the effect on families, users, if you have a mom who's consuming alcohol, how does she take care of her kids? How does she manage, right? Or a father who spends all the money and who comes home and is very generally abusive to his children, how do they grow up? And often, they're breadwinners. When you think about health, things like getting STDs. If you're drunk, because I've seen some drunk young women at Carnival, painfully drunk, totally inebriated, have no idea where they are, vomiting. The whole. It's painful to see the how the human spirit is affected. You almost look as a use your dignity.
You've lost
totally, right? And on a grown, you're drunk. You don't know who you have sex with because you're so inhibited or you're abused.
You don't know who you have sex with you.
Right.
Yes.
So there are STDs, lots of STDs, right? You get pregnant, you don't know where this baby come from, who's the father, anything. So those are some of the risks, right? It's funny because one of the things that came out as a negative effect of substance use is trafficking of children. Using children as traffickers and women as mules. So I remember years ago when I lived in that other place, this lady had one child, one teenage daughter who had a US visa. And one day the child didn't come home from school. And she's totally worried, you're 15-year-old, you're 14, you don't come home. And the drug dons gave that child drugs to take to Florida or New York.
Whoa.
So she takes her passport and she goes to New York. And the mother's worried, and somebody comes and say, "Hey, Sonia, your daughter, are you Sonia Nixon?" "Yes, I am." "Well, I'm calling from whatever JFK, I'm calling from JFK security, border control. You have your daughter." Is somebody pulling my legs here? Because somebody had to pull my legs, okay?
Yeah.
To tell me that it's in New York when I know I sent her to school this morning. And it was, no, don't hang up. Don't hang up. This is true. We're not trying to frighten. This is the truth. And she says, "Yes, I'm looking for my daughter," but it's not come and tell me that. They must be joking, right? And the child was in fact in New York. She had been used, and it was not the first time she had gone, except the other time she would come back before school opened. She probably had gone to Miami. They can take a flight out in the morning and come back with a flight 2 o'clock. Right? And of course, women were also used as to transport drugs so that people can have access, what we call quote unquote mules, right? And put them in different cavities. I've seen a mother dead on a flight because she swallowed a stack of cocaine, right, that was not securely stashed to take from South America into that other country, right? Dead, 4 children, right? Women become incarcerated because of the whole drug trade. But that is another thing. But if there's use, there's demand. And if there's demand, there must be somebody who fulfills that demand. And sometimes families are affected not only because anybody's using, but because somebody is procuring for the user.
Right. So, Doc, let's take a short break, and we're going to come right back. Stay with us, folks. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
You're already ill and have no time or energy to walk every which way to access your healthcare needs. So come to Spice Isle Imaging on the Carenage for a one-spot stop for all your health service needs. See our in-house doctor and get your meds from the pharmacy right on location. Digital X-ray, MRI, CT scans, mammography, ultrasound and laboratory services are also available. So for that moment when life makes demands on you, you can make demands on us. Visit us at Spice Isle Imaging, Carenage, St. George's. Hills and Valley Pharmacy offers both wholesale and retail pharmaceutical and over-the-counter products. We have the most competitive and affordable prices. We are the agents for Vit Plus multivitamin for healthy everyday lifestyle and Sonatogen powder. Hills and Valley Pharmacy supplies the best quality, name brand clinical products such as Rescue Oil, Bio Oil, Neutrogena, Aveeno, and Claracil. We offer the most convenient opening hours. Our telephone numbers are 435-6904 or 6903. Remember, at Hills and Valley Pharmacy, your health is our business. We care.
Now open, Hills and Valley Medicare Center, your one-stop for medical supplies, massage therapy, physiotherapy, and an in-house physician. At Hills and Valley, your health is our business.
level of convenience and comfort awaits you when you shop at Rise and Shine Supermarket and Hardware Supplies, Griffin Lane, Grenville. Convenient, because we are open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday to Sunday. We're even at your service on public holidays. Comfort, because we are easily accessible to the physically challenged. Free Wi-Fi is available while you shop, and bags come at no charge. Everyday low prices and excellent customer care. Adequate parking available. We supply everything you can possibly think of. Family and home supplies, fresh meat, vegetables, and personal care products. All brands of cooking gas at affordable prices. Plumbing fixtures, cutting and grinding discs, PVC glue, drywall screws, and power saw blades. You can send in your order, have it pulled, or pick up express.
Montreal, it's time to line virtually one more time. Gemma Rayburn Baines here for Spice Island Cultural Festival, a celebration of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. This summer's festival is a celebration of life with food, fashion, music, and culture. Join us online Saturday, July 10th, 3 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube at Spice Island Cultural Festival. Info, spiceislandculturalday.com.
Welcome back. It's Doctor and Call, and folks, our telephone line is also open. Our number is 435-2041. So if you have any questions, of course, we'll be happy to accommodate you. Well, we do have a call. Let's go to our telephone right away. Doctor and Call, good evening. Hello. Good evening, caller. Okay, well, something is wrong there. 435-2041, that's the number you can call. And folks, when you're calling, please turn the volume of your radio or your television down and listen to us on your telephone, all right? Doc, well, here comes that call again. Let's see if we can get through this time. Doctor and Call, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, caller.
Yeah, good evening. I have a question for Dr. Nixon.
Sure.
Yeah, Dr. Nixon, good evening. I'm happy to see you. I would like to ask, what do you think would cause nosebleed?
Cause what?
Your nose to bleed.
Okay,
so
thank you, caller.
So there are a lot of things that can cause your nose to bleed. We know that some people, first of all, principally, nosebleed should originate from something in your nostril. So normally you have lining in your nostrils. That should be intact. So some children just put their finger up their nose and fingernail cut it, they bleed. If you have a cold and your nose and it gets swollen, and you start to have runny nose and stuff, after a while, you can have nosebleed. Sometimes when it gets very hot, the blood vessels get very dilated, they can break and bleed. Some people are more prone to having nosebleeds than others. Sometimes people with hypertension get a nosebleed that indicates that the pressure is very high. Blood vessels break. You can have polyps, you can have, in the winter, for example, when the mucosa gets very dry, it gets prickly and it breaks. So there are a myriad of things. The truth is, though, that you really should, if you have a nosebleed, you really should go let the doctor look at you.
Right, Doc. Earlier, when you mentioned about some of the wines that were used before, someone reminded us it was Night Train and Thunderbird. That was the one I was trying to remember. That was the one I was trying to remember. Thunderbird. Someone is also asking, what are the effects of Rofalin? I'm not familiar with that.
What?
Rofalin, it seems Rophalin. I'm taking it that this is some kind of, well, I'm not sure what it is, substance. But I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Well, I'm going to see exactly what it is.
But in the meantime, we were talking about, we mentioned cannabis and so, and about a couple of days ago, I was looking at ABC News, in the morning, and they were dealing with the issue of the legalization of cannabis and stuff like that, and they were having a concern that people who purchase it, and that is for recreational purposes, were not getting what they paid for. What I picked up, apparently, when it's sold, it is mixed with other things.
All right.
And so that to me,
I mean the
yes.
So the Jamaicans call it seasoned spliff.
Seasoned spliff. All right. Mm.
The other names, okay, but that's the name I learned from being in Jamaica.
So what do they season it with?
So they can season with anything. Because remember, this is marketing, okay? It's competitive out there. If I buy weed from you as opposed to buy from Slocum, if Slocum weed make me feel nice, I go back and buy Slocum weed. But Slocum is not going to sell weed, okay? Let's get that very clear. But if you go to sell A and he says clear weed, and sell a B and he says weed that has a little something, start to do cocaine. Heroin is too expensive to put in there anyway. Mm-hmm. But they put some cocaine or they put a little bit of the methamphetamine, or they put something that makes you feel even higher.
It increases the feeling, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The nice, the sweet. Mm-hmm. You remember when necessary when a drunk say, "Oh, it's sweet."
Yeah, increase the sweetness.
Yeah, the sweetness is increased. And there are a series of things that they put into cannabis so that people you become addicted. Not to the cannabis you think, it's right to the other thing in there because it's an addictive substance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? And then, of course, one of the things we forgot to mention in the beginning, that there's substances we take by mouth, like alcohol, and we smoke and stuff, right? And we take a cannabis, we sniff cocaine, but we inject the opioids. Some of them we take by mouth, some of them by mouth, but some of them we inject into our veins. And that comes with a whole different set of challenges. God, I'm forgetting all my vocabulary. They had a drug that they used in Europe and Russia, IV, that just caused necrosis, right?
Mm-hmm.
That called necrosis means that just rotting, okay? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You get rotting of your flesh, so they get big carbuncles and ulcers all over the body. And a lot of people die. Okay, they call it crocodile. Okay, and they've seen it in the US. It has crept into the US. They call it crocodile because it can rot flesh and bone. Right? Starting in Russia. Okay. All right. It's made from over-the-counter codeine, which is a vasodilator, but they put pills in it, they put pain thinner. On a good day, nobody really used pain thinner. I've been out at medical school for, I don't even remember, a sub-count, okay? I hardly use codeine as a pain relief.
Uh-huh.
I don't use opioids if I don't have to, and really, 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 really rarely And I'll tell my patient, I'm going to give this a few days, just to take the edge off the pain, but I'll give you something else in interim. So, once that acute pain is gone. In some jurisdictions, what happens is that they give people, you go to the hospital and you have kidney pain, which is hard. But if you treat properly, we don't use opioids here to treat people who have kidney pain. Like you have a kidney stone or a gallstone. We don't do that. But in another country, they give you oxycodone, which is an opioid. In 3 days, you're addicted, more or less. You want more. It makes the pain go and you feel nice. Mm-hmm. Okay? When the other things you can actually use. And so maybe we are a little too cautious on this side, because in people who are terminally ill, like who have, malignancies and painful diseases at the end of life, terminally ill with painful conditions, you can use the nicotinic stuff, the opioids to help them take over their pain. But we still are very cautious here about using that. We still are very, very cautious about using that. Which, that's the other extreme, right?
Doc, let's take a call. It's been going. Doctor and call. Good evening. Hello.
Yeah, good night, Godfrey, and good night, Dr. Nixon.
Yes, go ahead, please call.
Are you hearing me now? Okay. Dr. Nixon, could you just give a little preamble before, in order to ask a couple questions? The World Health Organization defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely as the absence of disease or infirmity. So, if we were to formulate a definition of disease that was close to the holistic, that was close to being holistically accurate by WHO standard, could we say that disease is a state of active physical, mental, and social unrest, and not merely the absence of health? In that regard, in terms of the topic we're talking tonight, when we have a dysfunctional society or dysfunctional families, dysfunctional communities, dysfunctional workplace, and you say that this could contribute to people moving towards trying to cope by using substances. And would you consider the exhaust from vehicle as a substance which we unfortunately inhale so often? And there was one final question I wanted to ask. And what would you suggest? How can we minimize people going, opting for substance to cope with whatever thing? Oh, yeah, I know what I'm going to ask. Would you say that people who opt for abusing substances is an attempt to run away or to avoid dealing with deeper issue like maybe psychological or deeper issue? Thanks for your indulgence.
Thank you, caller.
You have said a lot, and you're just really just looking at it in isolation. But you are very correct to bring in the whole socio-ecological, what affects me, my family, the workplace, what are the influences from outside that make me make those choices. So we haven't looked at it. The truth is, a lot of us use what is available. So heroin use, I'm not saying there's no heroin use here, but it's low because it's not available and it's expensive for us. It's very, very expensive. So people will use whatever they have. Why do they use it? There are a myriad of reasons. And like you say, if there's social, mental, whatever imbalance in health. But also, the use of substances contribute to that imbalance in well-being. Okay? Why we drink alcohol? We drink alcohol because alcohol is nice and it's available, and you take 2 on a weekend and you go on about your business. It's not until you get to that point of, excessive use and that high consumption that creates all the other fractions that you recognize it as a problem. And yes, there are a lot of people, especially alcohol using men. I'm not talking about the young boys who just drinking because everybody is drinking. I'm talking about the young girls who drinking and who putting themselves at risk for breast cancers. I'm not talking about women who drink and neglect their children. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who have genuine problems and who aren't able to cope. I'm not talking about people who just drink because they feel like drinking. I'm talking about people who have genuine problems and aren't able to cope. Because there's a great relationship between alcohol, specifically consumption, and depression, right? It may manifest, but it can also cause depression, all right? That's how alcohol works. I worked in a jurisdiction where I was working in the drug detox unit as a physician, and we decided, one of my supervisor and I decided that we're going to do some interviews on the guys to figure out what was the underlying reason for and they were using cocaine and heroin, a lot of heroin, a lot of heroin, and that did smoke the heroin, but cannabis and heroin were mostly. Cannabis, it's funny because cannabis was actually more expensive than heroin. It's just a matter of what is available. And we started to have discussions with the guys, just informal discussions with them, mostly men. There were women who had challenges, but they're mostly men. And one of the things that came up is that a lot of the men were abused.
Abused, okay.
Neglected and abused, physically, sexually. Okay? Neglected and physically abused, sexually. So we kind of need to look at the underlying problems as a reason. Mm-hmm. So, for example, or is there underlying mental illness? Because sometimes there is underlying mental illness. And we know, for example, that people who have schizophrenia that smoke, people with severe mental illness, I'm surprised that people with severe mental illness don't smoke a lot. People with severe mental illness, like what we call crazy, and I don't mean to use that word, but I'm just saying, schizophrenia as our worst known mental illness around in these times, or bipolar affective disorder, which is mood swings, who smoke actually get relief from smoking. It creates a sense of calm for them. So they smoke and they calm down, and then 15 minutes later they light another cigarette because it gives that feeling of calm. Okay? So those are other issues. But I do agree with you that there are underlying issues that can lead to substance use. But at the same time, sometimes there are no issues. It's a question of practice. You know,
yes.
one of the things that is spoken when among alcohol users in particular, and among substance users in general, when they're going through their anonymous program is people, place, and things. Who are the people that are around you? What are these people doing? Where are you? Right? What are the things you indulge in that make you, that encourage or facilitate your use of a substance? People, places, and things. All right? So there are those other things. So I may use alcohol because my other friends use alcohol. As teenagers, we go to drink, we binge when we go to, nowadays, where we go? Down at the Sugar Mill and down BBC, right? Drunk, right? And you go home, and next week you do the same again. That is a problem, right? So there are lots of layers on this onion. And if you're going to look at the dictionary, you probably have to look at a whole, and substances in general, probably can take a week to talk about it because there are just so many levels. You're just trying to put it into a small package. You asked about exhaust. Remember, anything that make you feel nice. So there are children who smell, what do you call it? Your colored pencils, the markers. Mm-hmm. People who smell petrol, people who smell whatever it is that make you feel that you like how it make you feel, that's considered a substance. Mm-hmm. If it makes you feel high, gives you that sense of, ooh.
Glue sniffing.
Right? Glue, paint, you name it. Right? Things that make your head hurt. When I go to the gas station, I'm like, God, I have to close my car door. But if people like to go to the gas station, can I make them feel nice? You're not feeling enough high.
Gasoline, yes. Mm-hmm.
So, yes, exhaust is a problem. The sad thing is that we don't have, for the amount of people who use alcohol, because one of the challenges that we have in our men using alcohol, they also have diabetes. And so we see in the large amount of people who have amputations because one, they smoke and that clogs up the arteries, so you don't get proper circulation. To add to the point that your diabetes would also predispose you to that, and to add to the point that people who are inebriated most of the time don't seek out their health seeking practices are very low. So it's a whole convoluted, it's a complex thing. It's not very simple.
Doc, let's go back to the telephone for a bit. Dr. on call, good evening.
Hello, good evening. How are you doing, brother?
Very good. Go ahead, please.
Good evening to you, doctor.
Good evening, sir.
There is something that sort of a concern about this around this era. Anytime a man between 20 and 70 dead these days, they label it the person as the blue pill kill him. You understand? I guess you know what I'm talking about.
No, I didn't hear that words.
The performance enhancing drugs, namely Viagra, those other enhancing drugs. Anytime a man dead these days, people, the rumor is using enhancing tablets and so on, and that killing. You understand?
Yeah.
Yes, and I would like you to elaborate on this and the do's and don'ts about this enhancing drugs and so on.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So hear me. It's unfortunate, and that's why the athletes come under so much problems when they use illegal substances. Because when we take something that makes us perform better physically, whichever way, is often something that has severe effects on us. Mm-hmm. We saw the whole thing with Sha'Carri in the US on the weekend because she smoked weed, it turned up in her urine. It's funny because weed is not considered one of the drugs that would enhance her performance. But maybe it does because it makes her relax and she doesn't have the jitters, right? But the other performance enhancing drugs, and we talked about it. We talked about like using Wicked and Red Bull, and I'm going to ask you to forgive me for using the names on the TV, but those drugs, those things that make you high, unless you tell people, if you have those substances being so legal, of what the side effects are, you put them at risk for having challenge. Part of the reason why we feel also, especially men, that they need to perform, and I guess being sexually in this state better, because they hear all the crap on the roadside. There's so many stories as to what is optimal performance. How much of us really know? Not very many people know what is optimal performance. And then if you're going to have 5 and 6 girlfriends and you want to have sex with 5 and 6 women, and just to talk, to tell your friends, you're probably going to need some little help because your body have a way that is set up to function, okay? And that's the other reason why we can't tell people, have one partner that you guys are understanding. As you get older, you will have challenges. As you get older, everything works. If you have a brand new E-Series Mercedes-Benz today, in 5 years' time, it's not going to function as a brand new E-Series, always top of the thing, okay? You're going to need to go to the garage more often. You're going to need to make sure that your services more often. It's not going to function. In the same way, apart from the fact that sexual performance I'm going to talk about in this case, is going to deteriorate with age. We know that. Okay? Besides, by the time you get to 40 and 50, you probably have hypertension and diabetes, which are going to affect you. Diabetes on its own you're going to have circulatory problems. That's going to affect you. Hypertension, sometimes your medications will make your function decrease. So they affect you. And if you have diabetes, you're likely to have hypertension anyway with it. So it's another convoluted state. Mm-hmm. The bottom line is that it is important to speak to your doctor, because some people go and get those substances like of the Viagra and those legal substances and use. But the reason why you're not getting a proper erection is because your circulation is not working. Why? An erection is brought about by a normal functioning circulation. If you're smoking and you're drinking and you're not having a proper erection, you already have an underlying problem. You put yourself at risk. Remember, we talk about getting fibrillation and all that.
Yes.
You put getting other problems. There are other underlying problems. So, if a man feels that his sexual function is not optimal, he really needs to talk to his doctor first, right? And don't what the guys say. The guys in the rum shop, remember, often it's clerks go talking, not them.
Oh yes, definitely so.
And then we have those traditional tales that we pass on. So how many men sit with their boys and tell them what is optimal sexual function? How many older men talk to the younger guys?
But do they really know? I mean, you hear, and maybe we need to do a program on that, Doc.
Or instead of being, not me, okay, get a guy to talk about that. Or ask Dr. Aiken. Instead of having, everybody on their grand moving and pretending, guess what? Your sexual relationship is up to you and your partner. Your ability to your partner, and it should remain right. It's not better rum shop when you drink one little half a glass of rum and barely smell it and your mind gone and you're sleep patients.
Right.
Because I want to tell you some of the things that happen when you drink.
Yeah.
How alcohol affects your brain.
Before we go to that, let's just take a quick call and then we come to that. Doctor on call, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Doc. Very, very good program. But as the doctor is saying, tell me, the radio not too loud now? Hello?
No, go ahead, yes.
Right, yeah. Right, as the doctor is saying, this is a very, very wide and complex story, I think, right? Because, okay, take for instance, we talk about abuse. Okay, the abuse of anything is wrong, right? No matter how good something is, if it's been, overused, it becomes harmful, yeah? Right. Now, the thing about it is we have, okay, take for instance, we have a notion then, we human beings, like, do we learn to deal with problem in a macho, sensible way? In that if one start, okay, like take for instance, how does one deal with how does one deal with getting herself or himself in a sudden misfortune? Okay, well, we just saying that, okay, like, family gone, house burn. I mean, we just dealing on some here. Family gone, house burn, children gone, or no money, no food. This sudden misfortune. How does one really deal with these things? Do we really, were we really taught, I mean, in a sense, sort of macho way to deal with this, to deal with sudden misfortune, So, I mean, so all these, so as doctors saying, this is very, very complex situation to really deal with, and it's not just one size fits all. It's a very, 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 thing, because the next thing is that, okay, let's say we talk about good times, right? I'm going to have a good time. I mean, how do you? In other words, then we must have that drink or have that smoke or have that friend close to us or have that thing to really say, okay, to really associate it with having a good time. Why can't one have a good time just all by themselves with just by themselves, self alone, and have a good and have a good time. So so all these things that we are supposed to be talking about, and as you rightly said, we supposed to come on at some other time and finish that damn program, because this thing is very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah. So, Doc, just before the caller.
A very good point, because a lot of men, our society doesn't allow men to be ordinary people. So men, if I have a problem, I come up on TV now and I feel upset. We have a little argument with someone. I call one of my girlfriends and chat and say, explain to me, what do you think? I really don't feel good, or I come from work and I don't feel well. Then my partner have a argument. I'm calling my girlfriend, call my mother, call somebody, right? And deal with it. Men don't cope. They don't have those skills because we think that you have to come on, man, be a man. What's this crying thing about? What are you sulking? Go on, take a drink, go and rest yourself, right? When in truth and in fact, he also needs to understand what has happened to me here, right? Why have I lost my job? Why is it that I'm going to have to give up my car? A whole lot of stuff. Whatever the issue is, men aren't given, and it's not just Grenada, generally, men aren't given the opportunity to be ordinary people who have problems and needs. And so they seek it out in getting it numb. The whole coping thing, right? They look for ways to cope with whatever differences they have, right? Again, looking at this whole use of substance thing is a whole level. There's so many layers on this onion. Again, like I said, coping and emotional intelligence and capacity to deal with problems, so even to just understand the problems. And if you're going to indulge in something that numbs you, that decreases your capacity to be, your cognitive skills, your ability to make decisions, your ability to reason, your ability to understand, to see, to think straight and all the rest, you get into a vicious cycle, right? Men just don't have the tools, and we are a little harsh on them, all of us, female and males aside, thinking that men should respond differently to stressors. And the truth is, yes, alcohol is a nice place to go. You go to the road and talk to the guy, but you drink when you go home, you start, you're drunk, you shower or not, and you go to bed. Get up in the morning, problem might be there, you go and take another drink.
Back in the shop, yeah. Let's go back to the telephone.
Okay.
Dr. and call, good evening. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, good evening, caller. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good night, doctor.
Good evening.
Good evening. I would like to find out what are some of the side effects of vaping?
Vaping! All right.
Thank you,
so
caller.
Vaping is an excuse for giving our children nicotine, which is the addictive part of tobacco, of a cigarette. Okay? Nicotine in tobacco is the addictive. So vaping is just nicotine in that thing. Whatever the delivery mechanism, whether it look like an external hard drive, or it look like a pen, or it looks like a pump, or it comes in a hookah where they sit and everybody smoke a little bit. Right? What it is it's nicotine. Whether it smell like, whether it tastes, the flavor is cherry, watermelon, kiwi, orange, sapodilla. I don't care what it is. What it is delivery of nicotine.
Right.
Hold on. So I was telling someone today, we were talking about it. One of my professors, when I was doing my master of public health in Boston, said to me, they, as black teenagers in the south of Boston at their high school, and that's where a lot of the black people live, right? The so-called minorities live in South Boston. That is what would be equivalent to, you don't look like ghetto, but that is what it is. It's not the affluent part of Boston. And Boston is a university, Boston is a university city, but Boston has Harvard, MIT, Boston College, the other Jewish university, Boston University, you name it. It's all about education, right? And culture and all of that. Now, she said to us in the class, as a matter of fact, when they were teenagers, the cigarette companies came into the school and gave them free cigarettes. They're 15 and 16 years old now. They just came and had an encounter and gave them. So, and then a couple months later, they came and gave them their second dose. That wasn't coronavirus, it was just tobacco, okay? By that time, a lot of the kids are addicted to smoking. They've already had the 2 free shots, okay? And they're now addicted to smoking. They go out and they seek their own cigarettes. There is currently a lot of warfare against tobacco use, right? But the thing in tobacco that's addictive is the nicotine.
Nicotine, yes.
can give them nicotine, they will buy tobacco eventually because it's there. So the company's there, and they say, oh, no, kids mustn't smoke, and they give them, and they procure these things. They make sure it's available to them in the most innocent ways. No. Vaping was supposed to be a mechanism to help people to get off tobacco. Okay? So you vape, and you vape, and you vape down less and less and less until you can come off. Just when you use a patch to stop smoking, vaping is an alternative, except that it has been encouraged to be an introduction to the use of nicotine. So, vaping is bad. When our tobacco laws come revised or brought out, vaping is one of the things that's going to not be allowed, should not be allowed in our community. Use of hookahs and other things of giving substances in public are going to not happen.
Right. Doctors, something quickly, but just before time is going. I'm reading something here. There are risk factors that can make a person more susceptible to developing an addiction. These can include biological, environmental, and development factors such as, and that's the interesting part, gender, the presence of certain mental disorders, ethnicity, that one I would like you to speak on, past physical or sexual abuse, you made mention of that earlier, poverty, peer pressure, stress, early exposure to taking drugs at an early age, you mentioned the cigarettes in the school, and lack of parental supervision.
So those are basically the social determinants. Okay? What are the social factors that exist? So, for example, you may know and ethnicity comes in. I think we're looking at the American Indians. They have a very high incidence of substance use among them. So first of all, these people own all of the land in America, right? And then one guy came in, and some people who don't look like us quite, not look like them, came in and took the lands. And then they dammed the rivers. So whereas these people lived their lives, had the big, what do we call them? Reservations. They grew their food. They grew natural food. They lived well. Somebody dammed the river to provide water for other people that didn't look like them. And we know the problems now. Getting the pipeline across the Midwest, right? Which takes away their water source, right? So not only did they develop chronic diseases, they got depressed. What did they put in their places? They put to make them make money because they know they can't earn and stuff. They put a lot of places they go to gamble. What do you call it? Like slot machine stuff, right? Those are what. But they also have more access to alcohol and other drugs. So you have a people who live in an environment that is negative in their favor, right? And you create the social conditions for them to be able to use the substances, and that's where the ethnicity comes in. Of course, there's some people who are more prone to developing addiction than others. But if you create the conditions for them to develop addiction, it is better.
Yes, it will definitely.
Right? So that is basically what has been happening when you ask about ethnicity. And all the other factors you spoke do have its role. Where you live, what you earn, who you know, who you hang out with, all of those things are factors that are going to determine whether or not you will use a substance. And if everybody around you addicted, why would you get sober?
Exactly.
Okay? If everybody's addicted, why would you get sober?
Yeah.
And then you need to get sober.
Right.
So those are the...
Okay, lovely.
So I'll say a couple things quickly before we go, on alcohol and its effect on the brain. Because we could talk about the physical effect, what it does otherwise the rest of the... but the brain, because I wish I could, I tried to find a video to lend you tonight, but because, so you could play this girl from Harvard, who started drinking. She just drank. And she chronicled what happened as she drank on a video. She did a video of how it affected her, right? And here we see the substances, the alcohol in this case, affecting different parts of your brain. So you have change in judgment and reasoning. You have seen drunk men belligerent, right? They can't understand. There's no reason. Okay, they can drive on the opposite way on the highway at high speed. So what? I'm driving everybody because the sense of judgment is gone. All right. And of course, we see how they lose their sense of balance and coordination. I call them defying gravity because I've seen some men who lean halfway down, so because they're drunk and they just stand up and their head almost touching the toe, but they're still standing. All right. So there's change in the balance and that's from the back of your brain, your cerebellum. The hypothalamus regulates appetite. People who drink don't really have time for food, apart from the fact that alcohol is made mostly of sugar. Right? It's like consuming sugar because that's what makes alcohol. Right? So they don't have any appreciation of pain and the appetite gone, and the emotions are blunted for the most part. And sometimes, like I said, drinking over a period of time can lead to have depression. Right? And the amygdala, part of that brain that is affected, that determines your social behavior. Well, we've seen some disinhibition, haven't we?
Yes,
in
we
people
have.
who drink.
Oh, yes.
Extreme inhibition. And of course, the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory and learning. I have a friend who died a few years ago. About 2 years ago. And we were living when I was going to medical school, and he got drunk. One Sunday evening, and he came, and the things he told me, next one came and asked me, what did I tell you? Please do not tell my mother. Totally disinhibited. He couldn't even remember. And you see people drunk, I was drunk, I said that, I did that. So all of those areas are affected. And if all of these functions are going to be affected on one time when you're inebriated, when you just have too much alcohol on your brain.
Over time, continuous use.
But also think of the destruction it can do to your character, to your name, to your job, to your whatever, your embarrassment to your family, your children, you being sexually abused, you being physically abused, you being touched up and mauled by people who you normally wouldn't talk to on the street, right? You lying on the street in your vomit and all the rest of it. Think, you not being able to drive home, or you causing accidents and death. Right? Just one time. And when all of this happens and your whole social behavior start changing, okay, over a period of time. And it's legal to drink.
Definitely something that requires some sort of review. And it does, Doc, it does put a strain on our health purse.
Our health services. Because when you get that drunk and end up in a hospital, that's if an expensive drugs to make sure that your brain doesn't get damaged, to make sure that it can reverse the effect of the alcohol, or if you have nicotine, if you have heroin in your system, and because you can die. The other thing is that withdrawal from alcohol can actually kill you.
Yeah,
so
I actually saw, there was a special video I saw on that. There's a gentleman, a total alcoholic, is a Caucasian guy, and they had him in rehab trying to get him off addiction. And they had to keep giving him, because the total withdrawal was going to kill him. Eventually he died though. He couldn't.
The guys will tell you, because I spoke to the guys here who I knew, who I grew up with, and I said, and they'll tell you, they stopped drinking and they started to get tremors. You can die from delirium tremens. Okay? So what we need is really to have appropriate detoxification, because you can go through detox. can give you medication that will calm you down sufficiently so that your heart rate don't go out of sync, so that you don't feel like you're going crazy or you don't go crazy, so that your blood pressure doesn't fly up and all the rest of it, right? So there is medication that you can be detoxified, all right? But we also really do need services for just where you could go. Alcoholics Anonymous branches need to come up. That's the case. Also, I would say Substance Anonymous, SA, whatever you're using, even if it's smelling, even if it's marijuana, whatever it is. We need to have groups that can help people to recognize their problems, where people can go for support and talk about it and come through it, And sometimes you need to stay in those groups for your life, because if you have propensity to relapse and go back into that kind of practice, you will need support.
Yeah.
We need to have rehabilitation. We need to have, especially in the case of alcohol, we do certainly need to have rehabilitation services where you can be removed from the place, go into rehab for 3 months or 6 months, depending on how difficult your problem is, and you can come back and be a very viable citizen for the country. Because alcohol rehab, when properly done, does have 75% of the people in remission.
Yeah. Doc, and most importantly, as we wrap, I think the most important point here, we need a lot more education. Forum like these, when people can get to understand the effects of substance use and abuse, because, as you said, it takes only one time, and that can set you off. And the rest is history. So, folks,
I want to bestow on our families in particular, because I can tell you, that's where we started from. All of us, get a little cereal, get some Christmas cake, get your grandfather boy, take a drink, make your hair grow on your chest, and people encourage you to have a little drink. We really shouldn't start setting up our children so early, especially since alcoholism tends to run in families. And if we can, the longer we can keep our children away, the better it is for us. If you start getting that inclination inclined, right, unveiled, unfurled very early, the child has a greater sense. And alcohol is available. All of us have alcohol in our house at some stage or other. It's easy. You can always get your friend to buy a beer for you, although that is illegal. Let me tell the people who are over 18. You are not supposed to buy alcohol for somebody who's under 18 or to give them. But the law is not enforced, and that might be a problem. But I do agree with you that we need to educate our children to make good choices, or young people.
Yes.
And I also need to not be afraid to seek support, because there are ways to deal with the whole consumption of alcohol. Substances, there's just so much more we need to say. What drives you, how you recognize that your child is using substances. Other things, like you don't even know. They have it on the counter and it's Molly or some other drugs that we don't even get time to have tests for those drugs, because the people who manufacture them change the components so very often, right? There was another drug that we saw a lot of people having severe convulsions. You've seen it in the last 2 years. You see people on the street in the subways. I've seen some guys in Jamaica where they take this drug. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's probably some derivative of heroin or whatever it is that they take, and they start to have seizures, right? And very uncoordinated movements, and they throw themselves against the wall, and they do there's a lot of self-mutilation, for want of a better word. So you kind of need to see where it is. And of course, it is the responsibility of the health services to really ensure that there are facilities for people to get support.
Well, Doc, that's all the time we have. It's already gone past 10 o'clock. I thank you again, for being here with me and dealing with this very important issue. It is a subject matter that we need to return to. And of course, because there's so much to talk about and to disseminate that kind of information to our listeners and viewers, so very important. So we will return to that at some point.
If there's a need for support that they do have detox. They do have substance facilities at Mount Gay Hospital. We don't have Carlton House. That should be, hopefully the government can replace what we lost. But for support, there is a support group, and there is support for substance use at Mount Gay Hospital. Mount Gay Hospital is a mental health facility. Let's forget about all the other things that we hear about it. That is where the services are. That is where the experts are. So if you think you have a problem using substances, don't be afraid to go and find the people in the substance use department. You can get them. If your child has a problem, go get your child evaluated. Go get your child tested. Go to the doctor and get support. We have to do this, else we're in trouble. We're really in trouble because alcohol does predispose us to obesity, and we know that obesity is one of the main predisposing factors to chronic diseases.
Okay, Doc, thank you so very much. Thank you to our viewers. Thank you to our listeners, our friends on Facebook and YouTube and on the WhatsApp platform. We thank you very much for your contribution, your comments, and we look forward to being with you again next Tuesday for another Doctored Call. Thank you very much, and do have a good night. Yes, indeed.
Thomas.
Drug abuse. Cancer.
Measles. Diabetes. AIDS.